try that again. Hi, Judith. We're on the right feed this time. There's always something that you forget. Like I had the wrong key. I had yesterday's stream key. I forgot to paste. I copied but forgot to paste. Let me just check sound. Let me check the things. Okay, we're all good. Hello. Okay, I think we're good. Hang on. Let's do another very important test.
What a load of old shit!
Okay, that works. The important things work. Good morning, Judith. And everyone else who's watching. So I wasn't planning to, I was actually planning, best laid plans, etc. And I think most people weren't really anticipating this, which is, this is real. I love it when politics actually works properly and when people see what politics is and what can be done. And it doesn't always come sort of up to the... Okay, good. Oh, we're working. Okay, hang on. Let's see if this works. No, is that right? That button doesn't work. Okay, that's all right. Close enough.
Elon!
Some don't.
Elon!
I've still got to configure that in automations and stuff. So anyway, hello. Okay, so it is funny. It is interesting because I wasn't planning on talking about Assange because honestly, it's something that I care about. And I obviously, as an Australian, as an Australian with a big mouth, as an Australian who talks a lot about like geopolitics and the role that the United States plays in as a world actor. Okay. For some reason, it clapped for me. My buttons are messed up. Okay. Anyway. Thank you. You're welcome. No. Let's gather our thoughts. This is the concentration dick. Also, the lights are very artificial today because it is raining and dark. And I need to figure out a way to adjust for every potential lighting scenario because it works when I'm configuring it and then some other variable happens like a dark day or whatever. But I'm working on it. I've got to go buy all of the right smart globes and everything. It's like, we'll get there. Anyway, so, it's not something that I think there's a lot of, I think if you've been watching me for a while, right, I think that it's very clear what my position is on various issues. And I tend to not, I try to sort of zoom out and focus more on the sort of bigger picture stuff, the overall patterns, the overall trends, and also my area of expertise, which is ultimately the internet, very small thing, that thing, to be an expert in. It's very narrow, the internet, but also the political aspect of the internet, like the social, political impact, legal. Again, social, political, legal, they are overlapping, okay? Everything overlaps. But also, obviously, international relations, policy, politics, law, those things, they all overlap. And I've always had a particular interest in it, right? Despite, I actually remember, this is sort of, I went to apply to be a diplomat, work for the UN. Like I've applied to work like for these things over the years. And I kind of I think I got to the first stage of recruitment and my ex-husband, who was not a fan of, was not the most flexible person in the world, decided that he didn't want to travel. So I nixed that very early, but I've always wanted to do that kind of work. So when I see diplomacy working really well, I'm sort of rooting for all involved right now. The thing about Assange's release is that it represents both an epic failure of many things, but it also shows an epic success of other things. Okay. And unfortunately, because, the Twitter being what it is that people don't realize that both things can be true, that things can be a failure of various systems and can also be a tremendous success, and it does become a matter of how you focus. Okay, so a lot of things are just a matter of focus, what you're focusing on, which dials. If you're a pilot, focus, a mission, emphasis, right? They train you to one of the things that like pilots get trained in is which dials to focus on at which time. That will, that sort of training you up in that and learning to filter out certain things. And doctors, doctors are very much trained in the same kind of thing, which is that, like if you've ever been in hospital and you've got monitors hooked up to you, I hope you haven't, but I have several times. It's very scary. There's lots of things beeping, things go off. One of the things that a lot of doctors, military people, even CIA, police, anyone who works in those kinds of situations generally get trained up in how to filter information and how to emphasize and focus, and that overlaps with our, how to ignore those sort of natural, how to overcome. I'm trying to think of the right words, how to overcome those inherently human biases that we've got, right, to make better decisions, to make snap decisions, and to not, because I find that the whole pilot, that kind of training very interesting. Special ops is another thing where they're very good at that kind of thing, where they have to make snap decisions that are life or death. And if you focus on the wrong dial at the wrong time, you can miss something else, first of all. But also, if you are, but it's also about sort of, an overall picture, zooming out, zooming in, understanding. So that's kind of, again, that systems thinking kind of stuff. But that's very similar to what sort of international relations can be when it both fails and when it works. And policy is not a dissimilar thing. When you decide what to focus on versus what to ignore, both of those things are a policy. So a no policy is a policy. No decision is a policy, right? No decision is a decision in politics, right? And that's a matter of like what you're focusing on, what your emphasis is, right? And Assange's release, again, it shows things that can work, okay? Eventually. And this is the thing, right? This is a massive failure and massive blind spot for what wasn't a blind spot. It is. I think he represents the potential for multiple systems to let you down, to be caught up in something that's bigger than you, okay, and also to be rescued by that very thing. And I find that that's very interesting because, I mean, obviously there's things about Assange's release that we are never going to know, okay? And I think that that's another thing that people who are sort of, going off on Twitter. And now, again, no one can say really what the impact of a pressure campaign does, okay? Activists will always claim credit, and that's a good thing because it keeps people going. What it does, when I heard the news yesterday about Assange's release, it came as a surprise, but also it gave me a little bit more hope that things can resolve, things can be fixed. Now, you can't get, 17 years? 14 years of someone's life back. Okay, you can't get his life back. Okay, missing the birth of his sons, all of those types of things. You can't get those years back. So we have that's obvious. Okay, but sometimes that is what happens to you. You can't get it back. It happens to you, but it is quite the extreme test case for the internet. I find it really interesting. And again, I just want to emphasize that we're not going to know the details of this. We're going to know the details of what we're supposed to know. Okay. We're not going to know the actual strategic details of what this deal was. I'm seeing the lines now, which is that it became, untenable for the United States to claim they were a democracy. This is the talking point. These are the talking points. So Australia and the United States alliance, which is a very tight, and we're one of the few countries in the world that gets our own special work visa. Okay, that's how tight our relationship is with the United States. We don't have to go on H-1B visas, like work visas. We get our own visa just by being Australian. Okay, that is something that our government, again, you've got to look at the bigger picture. This is where the bigger picture and zooming out matters, okay, which is the relationship that we've got with the United States, okay? Now, there's a reason for that, which is we've always, again, part of it is because of like racism and xenophobia and all of those things, okay? But we've also got a security relationship that is real, okay? We are one of the few, we are all water around us. Okay, now again, how you feel about this, whether you think it's racist or not, okay, let's just park that. But the history of this is inherently like xenophobic. Let's just move on from that. But, people are worried about China, okay? Whether, they're worried about Indonesia. They're worried about various things. The security of the region, okay, we cannot do alone, okay? So we are heavily dependent on the United States military. Again, however you feel about it, it's a whole other issue, okay? You can critically look at that. But the very basis of our relationship with the United States is not money or trade or really anything like that, although ultimately that's what it becomes about. Our relationship and dependence on the United States is as a protection, well, what some would argue protection racket, and that's what I'm getting to with Assange, and others would say, like, we're not a superpower. We're very wealthy. We are very influential. We do have some influence, not as much as you'd think. We're kind of part of Five Eyes, obviously. Well, a big part of our role. Again, how you feel about that is, let's park it, okay? But we are part of Five Eyes. We are part of that security community. We are an incredibly important asset, right, or base for the United States. Like Pine Gap exists. Again, how you feel about that? Park it. Okay. These are all like a lot of these, but again, a lot of this stuff has sort of bubbled up domestically because over time, it has the sentiment here, right? For those who aren't in Australia, okay, I'm trying to do this. This is very, very, very fucking complicated, not complex. It's partially complex, but not complicated as well. It's more complicated than complex. Okay, it's fairly simple in that basically it's a protection racket where we have created a relationship that we are kind of, the United States have not really made good on a lot of their deals, other than sort of hand waves and that they don't see. Nobody takes us really that seriously. When shit gets real. Okay, so obviously we're dependent on the United States for security in the region, okay, in the Asia Pacific region, okay. Again, that's a whole other conversation about the actual basis for that, but that is the reason we have that strategic relationship, okay. We have a lot of natural resources that are very attractive to any kind of invading country, okay. We have, and again, you could argue the United States invaded us. That's part. Anyway, let's move on. I try to move forward. But I'm just trying to give some context to this because I think it's very important because everything is linked to the other thing. And I do wonder, and we're never going to know if this was the conversation that occurred, but, you've sort of noticed this limp dick thing with Israel, okay, with Penny Wong. Like, we know the position from, if you are involved in the Labor Party, you know that the Labor government largely, for the most part, supports, it would, there'd be a lot of, I haven't been to any meetings, but there would be a lot of very heated discussions at the membership level. I know the membership over Palestine, okay, it's pretty much consensus. A lot of common sense stuff, a lot common sense leftist stuff does happen at the branch level, even at the at certain levels, right? Okay, so you need to understand that it's a big tent, but there's broad consensus in terms of values, and most people in the party would. There's people that would go, no, I'm more like it's more complicated than that, and also anyway. So moving on. So you need to understand that any kind of left of centre party that gets in has to compromise a little bit on how things should be, because we operate in a system that is hostile to policies that any left-wing government wants to implement. Okay, that's just the reality of politics. Okay, now that's not to go pat people on the head and go, you know, they're there. Don't fight for it. You should always fight for it, but you should fight for it in the right way. Don't sit around saying that both parties are the same, because that is objectively not the case. It is just that you're not getting what you want at right now, and you just think that pitching a fit on Twitter is all you need to do, right? That's not activism. That's not leftism. Okay, that's called internet addiction. Okay, but from a policy point of view, things become more complex because we live in a democracy. First of all, we have a constitution. Second of all, many of the demands around things like rent controls, prices, international, not so much, because, you know, a lot of international stuff is like that loophole through the constitution with international affairs. That's fine. But some things are, like, you know, a lot of things around pricing, it's unconstitutional. You can't do it. Okay, we've had several referenda around this thing, and we have agreed as a nation repeated numbers of times that you can't regulate, like you can't really mandate prices. We're a free market economy as a core principle of whether you like it or not. If you don't like it, campaign for a referendum. Okay, what are we going to do? Okay, take it to court, be a test case. There's not much you can do. So anyway, people's hands are tied on these things. Okay, and I'm not, it's like, and then you just, anyone who says this is how things work here, oh, you're a right winger. No, I don't think the system's fair. I think they fucked up by saying these things, but you can't undo it. You can't suddenly decide that the Constitution doesn't matter, and you can't suddenly decide that these, you know, that that hundreds of years of case law don't fucking matter. You can't just do that because you're having a bad day. Okay. So, and it's the same thing with Assange. So I think it's been, like Albanese has been on record several times saying that he has been working for this. Okay. Now, the problem has been that Australia it's not an equal relationship with the United States. Like most countries, we don't have an equal relationship. We're more, let's just say I'm trying to think, that friend who's like too needy and sort of following them around, and they barely acknowledge them, right? That's how Australia feels. And a lot of the political climate here has been around our role in that partnership with the United States. Okay, what that alliance means. So around the submarines, again, I'm skimming over this is a lot of skimming because I'm trying to move the fuck on. But we've got, it goes beyond a tight trade relationship, but also, what was I going to say? It's not a two-way. Basically, it's not a two-way relationship. Okay, and a lot of people here have said, you know what, grow a pair. Okay, grow a pair with the United States. Now, obviously, those who know history understand that when prime ministers say, do grow a pair, like Mr. Gough Whitlam from 1975, like one of the most famous, it's the only time that we had a constitutional crisis in Australia was when Gough Whitlam, the Labor Prime Minister, now this is what I was taught in school and undergrad, and I took it on face value. Okay, it's interesting to see it's interesting to see what I personally have been taught and come away with. Now, they may have actually taught it and I wasn't listening, so maybe they did teach it. But I was not taught this in uni. This was something that I learned afterwards, okay? But in 1975, the Prime Minister of Australia, Gough Whitlam, had a fairly radical, pro-union. So there was a period in the 70s and 80s where the Labor governments were sort of implemented universal health care, universal education, free tertiary education, not just public education for lower and secondary, but also university. So a whole cohort of boomers got free university education, okay? And then they made the later generations pay for it. So they kicked the ladder from behind them. Of course they did, because boomer. And so they had, free education, free Medicare, all of these sort of, large infrastructure projects, all of that sort of stuff. Okay. And that was followed through with things like the Accord with the Hawke government and that sort of thing. But Gough Whitlam was one of the very first truly progressive prime ministers that we've had. Now, our current prime minister worships Gough. Most of us do. Okay. Most of us look to Gough as a beacon of what Australia can be. Okay. So, but Gough Whitlam, I was told in undergrad that Gough Whitlam was over the supply bill. Okay. Now, in Australia, you can, the upper house can block supply, much like the United States, but it's a bit different because we've got the Governor General, who is officially the head of state. The Prime Minister is not the head of state. That's by convention. The Prime Minister runs things as part of the executive, but the Prime Minister and Cabinet, but they're not mentioned really much. Okay, the Governor General is the head of state. Okay, in 1975. The Senate blocked the Whitlam supply bill, again, skimming right over all of the stuff, the details of this. Ultimately, the Governor-General stepped in and fired the Whitlam government. They dissolved Parliament and held an election, and ultimately he did not, basically sacked the Prime Minister. Okay, that was an egregious act of overstep because, again, it became, technically the Governor-General has that power, but you don't exercise it. It's not right, basically. Okay, so that's been one of the big examples of how one of the problems of governing via convention is that conventions are not written law. Yeah, okay, you can break conventions. So, but it's historically. However, has been reporting now again, according to the CIA. It's not happening and it didn't happen, but, people are saying it's becoming fairly, I think, clear. Again, there's things we're not going to know. We won't know. In my lifetime, we will not know the details of the conversations around Assange's release. That's the important takeaway, but it comes out later. So all we're doing, so anyone who's making sort of big claims about what definitely happened, unless you've got an actual spokesperson who leaks it, okay, which I doubt WikiLeaks will do because I imagine that is part of the condition, right? There will be a bunch of conditions attached to this, okay? And one of them will be you don't talk about Fight Club, okay? You don't do it. You use certain things that are now off limits, okay? I imagine that would be part of the deal. It'd be crazy if it's not, okay? I literally am talking about the politics of Australia versus the United States and the relationship. And I was just talking about Assange. I said the nature of the deal. They said that the CIA, so Australia is under a protection racket with the United States, okay? Basically, we are in a position where we can't just go release him, okay? So I saw a tweet, right? Let me get to my point, okay? I will get there, Judith. They are related. So Australia is not really in a position to start making orders because in 1975, the CIA did a soft coup, allegedly, on our country. When our Prime Minister grew a pair, okay, the United States did not like it, okay? There is some, again, according to sources that I trust, but otherwise are just sources. The CIA says it didn't happen. Okay, that the second that you stand up to, so Labor governments in particular, okay, we live in the shadow of that. We live in the shadow of the fact that any prime minister who stands up to the United States, okay, risks them interfering. So this is the thing about conventions, right? again, this stuff is famous in Australia. This is explaining to other people outside of Australia that US interference has happened and does happen, and that's the reality that we live in the world, okay? So with Assange, okay, he has been caught up in the middle of that. So Australia, like, this is lefties on Twitter who go, you just got to demand his release. And it's the same thing with Israel, okay, with Penny Wong and stuff. It's like, well, all we can really do is ask nicely and ask firmly and ask more firmly, okay? Because really, at the end of the day, we are dependent on the United States. We're not really in a position to be making demands, and they'll just, you know, they own us, okay? That is the position that we've found ourselves in over, well, 1975. I was talking about 1975. It goes back that far. Everything goes back that far, okay? If you can bear with me for 2 seconds. Okay, they are related to each other because none of these things happen in a vacuum. I know everyone's scrolling Twitter and it's like, you know, nothing exists in the past or the future or the present, or there's nothing in front of, it's just the video in front. But these things go back decades, okay? Now, a lot, and the thing about WikiLeaks is that they play an instrumental role in revealing a lot of that kind of information. Now, around the yeah, because okay, so Matthew said, I'm still very conflicted about Assange. Too many people I generally respect the poles apart on him. Yeah, but that's like anything. It depends on how much, a lot of people, I wouldn't base your opinions on what other people think, okay? Especially at the moment, because there are people who are just going with narrative and people who are not. And basically, anyone who's saying anything definitive about this doesn't know what they're talking about, because the nature of security and the nature of the relationship and the negotiations and things that would have led to his release, we will not know the details of. We know what? We don't know anything. We won't know. Okay, that's a fact. So if you're making claims about stuff, it's, you know, all of this is conjecture. I'm trying to give you context to why the Australian government, this is what we do know, okay? People have a lot of feel opinions about Assange, and they're allowed to have those. But, I mean, I had someone on LinkedIn, they're like, oh, I don't want sexual assault, sexual rapists. And it's like, yeah, okay, well, first of all, those charges were dropped. Whether they expired or not is irrelevant, okay? That's the process. Sorry, he found a loophole. Good on you. You can't just lock people up because you think they did stuff. But also, they dropped the charges, okay? But that was not the charge he was being held on. Okay, he was being held for that moved on. They dropped that. He could have been free if that was dropped. The charges were espionage charges and conspiracy, which had a fucking, you know, lifetime sentence, if not death penalty, okay? So it's like, fuck me. So I don't give a fuck about the sexual assault stuff. So anyway, that's a whole thing. These Me Too maggot brain, like brainworm motherfuckers who can't see past their bullshit, Tumblr bullshit. It's like, it was dropped. He found a loophole. Like most, if he's a predator, he's a predator. But predators find loopholes. What are you going to do? That's the system. Sorry, it sucks, okay? What do you want me to do about that? That doesn't mean that the other issue isn't fucking relevant. Shut up. We're not talking about that. So there's that. Anyway, I'm arguing with the fuckwits on LinkedIn who bring that up. And then there's other people that they make oh, well, someone should go to jail for life and be held in fucking basically isolation because I don't like them. Don't trust those people. Those people are either really fucking stupid or really fucking evil. So you shouldn't be conflicted about it. Okay? The man, like, you don't go to jail for life because someone doesn't like you. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay? The United States was trying to extradite a journalist over the leaking of documents. Chelsea Manning leaked the documents to a media organisation. The media organisation and he should have protections. The protections of a journalist. A member of an MEAA, he was a journalist, okay? The people who quibble over whether he was a journalist can go fuck themselves too, because they're the first people who go, oh, well, journalists have to abide by a code of ethics and the public. And it's like, Where's your code of ethics when you're writing about fucking bullshit on behalf of... Anyway, that shit. Your fucking ethics with your listicles and fucking bullshit and bots and troll farms. No, don't be conflicted. You don't need to be conflicted. It's complicated, not complex, which is that you don't put people in jail for journalism and whistleblowing when war crimes are being exposed and they're in the public interest. It's a persecution. Fuck. What is there to be... Anyway, it's not about what... people you respect make content. And a lot of them get paid to make content. They're going to... It's like, no, a lot of them get paid to make content that makes you conflicted. That's their job. Okay, so we live in the shadow. Sorry, Matthew, I was going off on a straw man. These fucking, it's just a straw man that exists, an archetype of idiots, not you, an archetype of idiots who just uncritically. Do you not think that someone can just, again, it's like, I'm sorry, but yes, in the circumstances, I am going to go, you know what? Given that there's a whole MO of fake Me Too bullshit used as a weapon, given that he went after Hillary Clinton, given that all of the accusations that were rallied against Assange, that he was helping Russia, that he was a rapist and all of those things, aren't the thing that Hillary Clinton's mob and all that other mob have done fucking time and time and time and time again, that it's not a fucking template. I'm going to go, you know what? That sounds a bit suspicious. I'm going to let you, let's like, well, fuck it, whatever. Okay. Sorry, thanks, Matthew. It's all right. I just get frustrated because, like, it's not even like, there's nothing to be conflicted about, really. The people who are conflicted about this are muddying the waters. They're making it about charges that were dropped. Okay. Now, again, very, very well know that, but again, it's just, it's a what about? It's a distraction from the actual charges. The actual charges are pretty, like one of the main things is that he put lives in danger. No, you put lives in danger. He exposed the mass slaughter, the war crimes. Okay. So what you're saying is that like some lives are more important than other lives. Now, again, I'm not going to be oversimplifying here. Okay. I agree that but I imagine he would have been conflicted about it. Okay. Again, just because someone doesn't, here's what, another psychological bias that people have. Okay. As a human being, don't say you don't have it. I have it. We all have it. If you say you haven't got it, you're an idiot because it's true. We have a tendency to assume the word. This is a false attribute. Is it fundamental attribution bias? Okay. I think one of those, which is that we assume that when someone makes a decision that we don't agree with, that we don't like, we assume that they did it for all the wrong reasons, and that there's no complexity, no reasons, no, there was no dilemma, all of those sorts of things. Okay, but for ourselves, it means we have lots of reasons for our behavior. We can rationalize. Oh, but it was complicated. It was a difficult decision. It was all of these things. Okay, and then the second that it's something that we don't agree with, we assume that that they were evil or that they were malicious or that they just like that's just, we see that fucking weaponized daily on social media, right? Which was my enemy. You watch people hypocritically going, oh, well, because I don't like them, they should go to jail. That's not a fucking system. I don't give a fuck if you like someone. They have rights. And also, like, even though he's free now, he's still pleading guilty to an espionage charge as a journalist with a 5-year prison sentence. That means that the United States has a criminal conviction on a journalist for leaking, for sharing leaked information. That is on the books. Now, again, we don't know the details. I imagine when I'm 85, and it'll be the last book that I maybe read, where someone goes, you know what? Part of the condition part of the negotiations, and someone will write a book, okay? Assuming we haven't like obliterated everything by then, but someone will write a book and they will talk about this deal, and it will be basically, Australia negotiated with the United States that as part of this deal, if you want our support with future fucking endeavors and Israel and all of these other very embarrassing things that you are doing right now, okay, maybe you should knock off prosecuting our citizens and journalists and maybe not be a fucking hypocrite, okay, when it comes to democracy. At least you need to at least have the illusion that you're a democracy, okay? We know you're not. It's a military dictatorship, okay? And a fucking corporate kleptocracy and all of those other buzzwords that, maybe we can have 4-hour podcasts quibbling over the difference between capitalism and communism. Socialism and communism, and a kleptocracy versus a plutocracy. It doesn't matter. Fucking shut up. You're wasting time. It's quibbling. Pointless. Quibbling is a known red herring in terms of getting debates moving forward. It's a kleptocracy. It's an autocracy. It's a plutocracy. Whatever you want to fucking say. Stop with the word games. Not a democracy. Okay. So, we're over about. So basically, I think, it's going to be interesting to see what information actually does come out because, we're not going to get any. This is at the intelligence level. It's not. Once it reaches a certain level, like with, you sort of your diplomats and your sort of foreign affairs departments and that sort of stuff, you're not going to get it. Like even the people within the department is basically need to know, like only the people who are involved know the details of the conversations. Like that's and Assange would be a big part of this would be conditional on him not speaking about it. Not there would be lots and lots of conditions attached to this deal. I imagine behind the scenes and the details we won't know. I don't know why people think we're going to know. It's funny. That's another thing. Said this morning. Oops, I dropped my dick. Hang on a sec. My dick fell. It's like people don't realize this is, again, I started out the stream saying this is when politics works. It's good because basically what this was I imagine, disclaimer, not an expert. I know I'm an expert in some areas, more of an expert than most fucking idiot podcasters with an opinion, but still not an expert in this particular matter. I would imagine that they had leverage with Israel. And I would be interested to know what the conversation was and whether this actually it'd be interesting. Okay, this is the thing that I would find funny with your average Twitter lefty, right? Because they're not fucking activists, they're just fucking idiots, right? But like they think that politics begins and ends with Twitter and watching and tweeting Q&A. So that's not what this is. Politics. Politics is meetings after meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting for years and years and years and years, showing up to the boring thing, doing the boring thing, calling every day, calling every single day to go, where's the memo? Where's the memo? Can we have a meeting? That's politics. It's very fucking dull. Okay. It's not a superhero movie. It doesn't work that way. Okay. But anyway, I would love for the little Twitter lefties. Okay. Who are idiots. Okay. Twitter righties are stupider, okay, but lefties, everyone's stupid. But anyway, you or anyone in the culture wars is an idiot. Okay, so, I would love to see. Oh yeah, that's right. I'd love to see if somehow, Australia's support in Israel became the bargaining chip for the release of Assange. Because I'm seeing, obviously, like I said, back with, since in the shadow of the Whitlam dismissal, Labor governments are scared of doing anything. Okay. But I don't think people really understand how coercive the relationship with the United States is with Australia and, around the world, but in Australia particularly. Okay. Because we're very dependent on the United States goodwill. Okay. Not only for for not only for like in terms of security, like military security, but just things like our special visas and our special concessions, and the fact we get lots and lots of treats that the rest of the world don't because of our allegiance or with the United States. There's lots of benefits to it. Okay, there's lots of downsides, but this is the cost. Okay, there's no such thing as a free lunch, even in politics, right? You've got to, and the United States hasn't been meeting their end of the bargain. And I imagine that our government, because they're a Labor government, and they have obviously got a position on Israel and Palestine that goes against the United States. But all they can do is do a harshly worded email and say, please stop, please stop, please stop, because, we don't have any say, okay? But I would imagine that would give you some leverage in the eye. So it is funny to see that would give you some leverage in terms of the bigger embarrassing thing. Again, I'm not going to dismiss the work of those who have worked tirelessly on this. Like keeping that in the public zeitgeist is very important, and the awareness campaigns are important. To the degree to which spurging out over it on Twitter is useful, that remains to be that's questionable. Okay, I would argue that it's more about sort of media and political interest. But again, they all feed. Again, whatever. Okay, that's all speculation. Okay, but I don't think it's emotionally healthy to fixate on a single issue and do nothing about. Nothing else other than talk about that one thing on Twitter all day and yell at everyone who doesn't share your worldview. That's not healthy for you, okay? Activism has an element, and I say activism, okay, because it's not activism. Activism show up to things. Activism attracts unwell people and obsessive people, okay? I've dealt with this stuff, and they can often sabotage and undermine the campaign. That's something that I'll talk about like at another thing with the AI thing, okay? Activists can often do that, okay? Where you do have to be very careful that you don't attract. If you're running an organization, you're going to attract crazies, okay? Who are too intense, who can't see the wood for the trees. You give them busy work, okay? You get them you get them handing out flyers and talking to people, but you don't get them in a room negotiating. Like, okay, that's just, if you're a single-minded activist, you have no place in a policy room, because policy work is about stakeholders, compromise, negotiation, and all of the things that we've seen with Assange. Okay, now, again, that's speculation. Okay, it could again, I'm speculating. I want it very clear that I'm speculating because we're not going to know. Okay, and again, even the stuff we're told will be highly and tightly controlled and managed. Okay, even from WikiLeaks. Okay, it'll be a condition of the whole deal. So that again, I'm just making sure that I'm very clear about that. What was I going to say? I can't remember. I forgot what I was going to say. Drop my dick. Fucking hell. Geopolitics and penis. Okay. It's oh yeah. So the lefty said, no, yeah, that's right. So I'm having a chuckle because I'm just watching, and I have a very deep, and I'd be interested to see if anyone says this as well. This is a suspicion. I have no evidence for it. It's just based on what I've seen and known from history and all that stuff and how these conversations generally go, is that I imagine that our continued support with Israel and our continued, oh, please stop, I'm going to send you a fax expressing disappointment. It's like, we all know the US, they do what they're going to do, fucking do. It's different for US citizens. US citizens can impact things because they're the United States. Okay. But one thing that our Australian government really can't do, they've done all they can do. Okay. A lot of it is diplomacy behind the scenes, but I imagine that a part of their deal was, look, we can't keep supporting this thing. You look like fucking idiots. Like the talking point was, the United States and Australia's relationship is based on the concept of a thriving liberal democracy. And we, as one of the only liberal democracies in the South Pacific region, we don't like... Oh, yeah. So, Megan, okay. Oh, good. LinkedIn's working this time. It wasn't the other day. Yeah. If you've been an activist, you know that, like, people who are, you have to, if you're a leader, okay, in these spaces, if you run an activist organization, or you're even a branch secretary, or I've worked in electoral, I've worked for politicians, I've been on campaigns, and I've had activists actively almost lose a campaign, okay, for a candidate because they pulled a stunt that they thought was fucking, like, important and funny, and didn't have an understanding that politics is about, like, negotiation and compromise and stuff. Again, I used to be in the Greens. A big tension in the Greens is that tension between whether they're an activist organisation like Greenpeace or they're a parliamentary party, and those things they have tensions because one it has activism and you do stunts and you do stupid shit and you troll on Twitter and all that stuff, but you can undermine the efforts of those that are actually doing the thing that, you know, politicians are supposed to do, which is compromise, discuss, negotiate, make deals, give this for that, this for that, this for that. It's a constant thing. And I think people need to ease up on Labor. I hope that the lefties do ease up on Labor, because I have a very strong feeling, and this is my main message, is I hope that they realise that there's a very strong possibility that the one of the bargaining chips was continued support for the genocide in Gaza. Okay. That is the reality of these conversations, and it sucks ass, okay? But these two things that you care about, and you can only have one, okay? And, you know, that's what happens, okay? And again, I'm not saying that in terms of like that's a fact. I'm saying there's a chance that that's the case, okay? Based on what I've seen, is that it's compromised. And just it seems like an awful big coincidence. Obviously, they're heading into an election year. They've got elections in the UK, the US, and here at some point. And it looks very bad for it looks bad for every neoliberal government. That is, in the context of the rise of the far right and all of these things, to be so draconian over a journalist, talking about freedom in North Korea and China and talking about all these other things, whilst persecuting a journalist for publishing information when the person who leaked it is still has been effectively pardoned, right? And again, I'm not saying that Chelsea Manning should have been arrested. I'm saying it's, again, like, people will go, oh, well, he's responsible for her arrest. No, he's not. He didn't dob her in. They scraped her. She actually, the details of that, I'm not, there's a lot of misinformation around this stuff, so it's like hard to know what again, if you're not on the inside, you know. But I'm not someone who's scraped through every detail of this, but from what I understand is that Chelsea did try to use secure channels, and they both used secure channels and all those sorts of things, and they actually confiscated her MacBook, and she'd zeroized it, but they found some metadata and shit that had some linking back. This is really sophisticated stuff. They linked it back to some chats with that they were probably Assange, and so they, that it wasn't, there was no snitching or anything as far as I can tell. I haven't read Manning's book, so there could be new information, but that's my understanding of what happened, was that it's just that they scraped, and scraped well, right? You don't have privacy. Let's put it that way, okay? If Manning got caught through this thing, then we're all fucked. Assume that you have no privacy, okay? But it's just, this is the thing for the everyday lefty, right? Is to understand that, again, when people like me say it's more complicated than just screaming, and look, I'm not saying that he, again, it's like, my position is obvious. Yes, I agree. But it's not. What do you want people to do? They're sitting, there's a bunch of people, like, and this is the thing about the Greens, who they will sit around and go, oh, they're both sucks. They're both terrible. They're both horrible. Both parties are just as bad as the other. And it's like, no, they are not. Okay. One is actively working behind the scenes. Okay. To try and do things like this. And they sometimes take longer than 5 minutes. You can't just, I don't know how these people think these conversations work. the Prime Minister of Australia trying to get a phone call with the head corpse of the United States is nigh impossible, okay? I don't know what you think. Do you think that he just sends a DM and asks a favour? Like, that's not how things work, okay? It's a long, sustained effort with very sensitive information, negotiating terms, trying to get maximum leverage, trying to, massage various things. And it's like, cut them some slack. And on the other hand, you've got the coalition who are engaging in fucking culture wars bullshit and doing nothing except give contracts and destroying our institutions at every turn, picking on citizens with robo-debt and fucking all of this other bullshit, okay? And claiming credit for whatever the fuck it is that they do. And it's like, no, they're all about optics and veneer and doing nothing. And like, look at the proof, ease up. And the Greens, trust me, and I've said this before, okay, they will quite happily usher in a coalition government if they get more upper house seats. Of course they will, because that's their job. It's a party, political party. They want to get themselves elected. And if that means getting more Liberal vote, splitting their tickets in marginal seats, they will do so. And like, it's not about the values at the end of the day. It's about self-interest. And I don't trust the Greens because as much as they say that it's about values, it's not. It's about them getting themselves elected in the upper house, which again, you could argue that provides some checks and balances in policy. It does. But you have to remember that when there's how you want things to be and how things work, okay? And the reality of voting for the Greens, okay, according to their how to vote ticket, you can vote, how you want, obviously, but on their how to votes, often when they can't decide on which candidate, if they don't have a preferred candidate, they will quite happily just split the ticket, or they will negotiate with other minor parties, even fasci parties, if it's going to get them the vote. They have done it with One Nation before, and they will do that again. Okay, it's not about principles when it comes to when it comes to preference deals and that sort of stuff, okay? But just remember, they will do that. Like, it's not about, because they have to sell this idea that both parties are evil because they have to maximise their, they can't obviously go out and say those things. Anyway, moving on. They've often done deals with nationals, like here in WA with the Greens. They've done, as part of it, we've done deals with the nationals because the nationals have a stronghold in rural WA and they're tremendously influential. In order to get an upper house seat in Western Australia, you need to make a deal with the nationals, okay? And that's fine, but you've got to be aware that it's not about ideology, okay? It's about numbers, and that's that's the reality. And it's the same thing with the this stuff with Assange. And I think that's one of the things with lefties that frustrates me is that they have no fucking understanding of strategy, but also that these things are happening. And to just turn around and hit at people over the head with the issue, it's like, well, yes, you can be an activist. That's fine. Okay, that's great. Activists play a role, okay, and a very important one in bringing things to the public awareness. But activists can also spoil campaigns as well, okay, and put people off. They can be because most people are fairly reasonable, pragmatics, and, people aren't as stupid as activists like to think they are. As much as I say people are stupid, I think activists tend to attract a certain personality type, and there is an authoritarian aspect or an authoritarian element to a lot of the way activists view the world, which is that it's my way or the highway, okay? That is an inherently authoritarian worldview, which is that my way is correct and everyone must bend to my will. That is anti-democratic on its face, regardless of the issue that you think that you're fighting. That is not. It's opposed to pluralism, right? Again, I know I said quibbles are a waste of time, but some things do matter, okay? And again, I try to focus on reaching the individual about how they approach activism because you can't really necessarily, like I said, we don't know about, this is all CIA shit, okay? We do know that the CIA were thinking about ways to try and kill Assange, okay? We know there's things that we do know, okay? Past, previous, current behaviour, we do know that that's likely to be the case. That's another reason why this whole rape charge thing I'm willing to park. Not normally, I wouldn't. because, you know, again, I don't have to defend my politics because my politics are obvious and known. Okay, I'm on the right side of things generally, and when I realize and get new information, I change my mind. That's what I do. Okay, I'm not someone who just I mean, people who that was funny. There's that Tesla guy, right? Cracked me up. Oh, fuck, there's this video. And I want to make it like a drop or something because he was about his Cybertruck and he's complaining about how they you need Tesla's permission to sell the car and that you need, I think they can charge you or something. I don't know the details. I have like very little interest in Tesla bros and Tesla, but it's there was this funny thing, but there was this video and he goes, I'm sick of Tesla. And he goes, what am I supposed to do? I'm a Tesla influencer. And I'm a Tesla influencer. It's like, yeah. And then you were proven wrong. And you could actually go, oh, well, I was wrong about this. I maybe won't be one anymore. And I think that that's the problem when you hitch your wagon to a content strategy. Let's put it that way. There's no room for you to back out when you're wrong, and people are often wrong, because especially when you're talking about global politics, but especially the intricate and very delicate situation of genocide, these things. Okay, they're very, very. Like I said, they're complicated. They're not complex, okay? They're morally fairly straightforward, complicated, lots of moving parts, and that sort of thing. Morally, pretty fucking straightforward that there's a line there, okay? Again, I don't need to justify my politics because it's obvious, okay? Now, if someone says something like, I don't know enough about that, here's what I think might have happened. I think maybe, you know, maybe the anti-Jew rhetoric is a little over the top, doesn't mean that you are pro-genocide and that sort of shit. And it's like, okay, there's a very good chance. Again, I've said this before, there's a very good chance that the continued support of the United States and Israel is dependent on the Assange's release. It just, again, that is, again, 100% speculation. I'm just saying, if as a person who negotiates things from time to time in various things, that seems like a fairly obvious bit of bait. Okay? When you see all of the things like, go, okay. And can you live with that? Okay? Can Assange live with that? That's the main, that's another thing. Because the mental health toll that this is going to take is going to be pretty huge if he's a man of conscience. But it is funny actually, because you're seeing a lot of these like, oh fuck, these Gamergaters, these anti-Gamergate people, all right, these fucking idiots. And I saw it, I just, on my For You feed on X, I saw someone go, wait till people find out, Assange's supporters find out that he's just not the rosy lefty hero that that they think he is. I think he likes Gamergate. Oh, fucking, again, I just laugh. I just laugh at these idiots because it's like, Brianna Wu has, like, again, I don't agree with it because you know where the political tide is heading when you see where the grifters go. And if they're heading on trigonometry, they're a grifter. But like, it's just, but even the person who like said that Gamergate was all of this shit, okay, even the actual, one of the main architects of the bullshit, okay, around Gamergate said they were wrong. So what the fuck? Doesn't stick anymore. Okay. It's like fucking hell. Again, if you invest so much of your identity and personal brand and in being on being on one side of an issue, you got nowhere to go. You got nowhere to move. And like, I'm seeing a lot of that happen now, and especially with this right-wing shit. And it's like you've gone so far right. Like, I'm sorry. I've tried warning you that this is more than just content. This is propaganda, and you're on the wrong side of this issue. And you are helping some pretty, horrible people, and they don't care because it's content and they don't care. And I go, well, that's on you. That's not on me. I did what I could. I'm here if you need me, if you want to talk, if you want to change your ways. And they're like, but they're so far in. They're so captured by their audience and by their who they're hanging out with, and they've alienated pretty much anyone who's remotely sensible or reasonable, and they're in it now. They're in it. I'm not going to go so far as to say that people are complicit, because we have no power. I mean, the only power I've got is to turn on a camera and talk, and that's not fucking much power because no one's fucking watching. Right? Like and subscribe. Why wouldn't you? Get yourself yelled at. Sorry, Judith. And you got me already ready to blow, Judith. And I was just saying that this stuff goes back. You need to understand there's a lot of history. It's not just about one man's release, but about a whole history of Australia being cucked to the United States. Okay? Sorry, I used the word cuck. I must be a gamergator. Fuck me. But it is funny. I'm watching, first of all, the chilling silence. There's a lot of very chilling silence around this stuff, like the journalists and stuff, right? Very interesting, butthole clenching, okay? What's going to be interesting, and this is another thing that I see with activism a lot, is that when there's a victory, people show up and say they were, take credit. I'm quite honest about saying that I did not do anywhere near enough on the Assange thing, but that was mostly because I feel like people, first of all, I think people, if you ask me, I'd just give them the answer and say yes. And I can only do a handful of things, and it's not my lane. I felt strongly. I mean, I was tearing up all day yesterday at the thought, like every time I was like, I'm so happy that he's released, right? I cared about it, and obviously was deeply worried about it. But I didn't do enough. I'm not going to sit here and claim credit and say we did it. Okay. I did fuck all. Okay. But a lot of people, this happened. A lot of people will start to rewrite things. They rewrite history. They'll pretend that they were involved. They'll pretend that they helped, but again, there are people who work behind the scenes who aren't necessarily front and center in campaigns either. So you've got to be, like a lot of journalists, obviously, who have stayed on this. Okay, I think Crystal Ball's been on it. There's some really unlikely people here, but Ryan Grimm's obviously been on this and been, there's people who've been on the right side of this stuff and been like attack dogs with it, right? And others who haven't. But again, I just want you to know that most of the people who are in public are just the public face of things. I think that what this shows is that most of our work is done behind the scenes, making deals and that doesn't necessarily mean, it's the deep state. It means that this is politics at its finest. This is the part of politics that I love, which is negotiation. It's obviously not the part where someone is locked up is not good, okay? Obviously, that's an injustice and it shouldn't have happened in the first place. And I hope that there is at least some reflection on those who, they won't. The thing is that the people who you want to reflect never do. That's the problem, okay? But I would hope that like when you're in business, anytime you run a project, you do a post-mortem and you go, okay, well, how can we improve? How can we do this continuous improvement and look at where we went wrong, put processes in place to make sure that, we don't make the same mistakes. Now, I would assume that some of those things will be there'll probably be an inquiry and various other things, whether we know about it or not, there'll probably be an internal inquiry into, how all of these things. Okay. I would hope that at least there will be some personal reflection about people's biases, especially around this rape charge thing, where you just take one of the things about a lot of this stuff, this identity shit, right? It is used as a weapon, and it is designed to trip up your biases, which is that you go, well, I care about this more than anything else. So if you're a one-sided act and you only care about Me Too and you only care about sexual assault, very important issue, okay? Yes, all of these issues are very important. All of them are really equally urgent, equally important. Yes. However, in a democracy, you got to prioritize. You can't do everything. And that's again, unfortunate. All right. That's one of the things where I know I'm not going to go on this tangent about China, but, one of those things about China's model is that people forget that they've got to govern 1 billion people. You know, America have not done so well with 350 million, 360 million, 330 million, whatever. Forget it's 300 and something million. Too many. That's too many idiots to have to govern, okay? With, you know, there comes a point where certain like direct democratic things don't really function very well. And Australia functions well because we're small and we can do certain things that, you know, others can't. But at scale, you can get into this big, you got to cut some slack. Right? These systems were not designed to govern millions and millions and millions and hundreds of millions and billions of people. They were designed to govern, you know, small societies, okay? So cut people some slack. We're figuring it out, okay? And anyone who does the job of policy that can hurt or, you know, that impacts hundreds of thousands of lives, you know, has a tremendous job on their shoulders, and I put I tip my hat to anyone who does that. I don't think most people are evil. I think people can be self-interested, and people can do motivated reasoning and reason backwards from, you know, their biases and that sort of stuff. But I still don't. I think there's very rare instances of pure evil out there. There's some, Hillary Clinton. There's some, but you know, it's you know, not, it's rarer than you'd think. Okay. I think people are too, people need to be more charitable. Okay. Across the board and not, and assume that, you know, every bit of your behavior has a reason and a motivation and a history. And, you know, you did your best, but the second that it's someone that you don't like, it's a cardboard cutout evil caricature of, like, you know, so, well, maybe they had complicated reasons for doing things. Maybe they came to a different conclusion because of the sum of their experiences. Maybe they've had trauma that you didn't. Maybe they know something you don't know. And that's the thing that pisses me off about these fucking idiots. Anyway, single-minded activists, give me the shits. But well done. But there will be a bunch of people who come in and try to glom onto it, and I'm not going to do that. I wasn't part of it. I did fuck all. I didn't do enough. Okay. You know, but I can say that, you know, I kind of have an interest in it. And I think that we're not going to know the details. And I think anyone who thinks that we're going to is tremendously naive, and that we're not just going to be fed talking points. It's funny because you do see the lines. Like I said, I couldn't say that they were a democracy while doing this. It looks bad for them. Yeah, okay. I agree. Not a democracy. But basically the subtext to that is, hey, this is blowing our cover. You're making us look bad. No, I'm kidding. But, you know, a lot of it was about the optics going into an election year, okay, being able to throw the left a bone. And a lot of this stuff is every left-wing victory that we have is basically enough to fucking throw us a bone, never more than that. But it is nice to know that when the victories do happen, that they still can happen. You know, they still can happen. You still can win. Even if I personally think that a lot of this stuff does fuck all and a lot of it is negotiation, the public pressure can't hurt. The profile, the high profile stuff, you know, awareness raising doesn't hurt. But I don't think it necessarily, you know, I think that tearing down anyone who isn't immediately focused on your cause at all times doesn't really understand how these systems work and how many hundreds of people would have been involved in this negotiation. I found it really interesting that Stephen Smith was on the plane. Stephen Smith, I've known Stephen. Well, I obviously don't know him now, but when I was in student politics, he was the member for Perth, federal Perth member, and he's now the minister for. He's what is it? Something with the UK, whatever the fucking job title. I think he's a diplomat for the UK, representative of Australia, whatever that title is. Okay, so we've got Stephen Smith in the UK, Kevin Rudd in the US as the US ambassador. Kevin Rudd is a fantastic person and a stand-up person. I can't think of anyone better than Kevin Rudd to be representing Australia in the United States. I think his team have probably played a big role in this. But what I found interesting was that the accompaniment of an Australian a diplomatic representative of our country, a high-profile one at that. on the plane with him. And I again, you go, well, based on what we know, it seems like, well, we're going to send someone that would notice. We would, if something should happen, people will notice. And I found that interesting. Stephen Smith's a good guy, consummate politician, but very soft-spoken and, policy guy. And, so he's another one of those sort of understated background kind of people, right, that is true power in the party, right, really influential, in very good numbers guy. But again, people don't want to accept that politics is a lot about numbers, but they're not incompatible. And you try to do what you can do as best you can. I quit. All I wanted to do was be a senator, like for Western Australia. That was sort of my goal when I graduated high school, was that I wanted to be a senator. Okay, I love that. But when I became active in the parties and stuff, I realized that I'm just not built for factions. I'm not built for factional politics. And the things that you need to do, the compromises that you need to make in order to even run, let alone get a Senate thing where you are pre-selected, and if you get this, the nomination for seat 1 or 2 for the ALP, you stand on a hill of dead fucking bodies to get there. And I know that's unfortunate, but that is true. It's just, you to get pre-selection, because the faction wars within the parties are so huge. It's all just a big numbers game, and you're negotiating. It's like being on the fucking New York Stock Exchange floor, most of the time. Like you're trading votes, not shares, right? That's the reality of politics that I had to face. And again, I'm not saying that it's not there for a reason, and it works and functions a certain way, because you do need to be a certain personality to be a politician. And I just didn't really think that I was built for that part. And I was right, but if they ever approached me to run, I'd probably run, but I don't think they're going to do that. So, but I just realized that, something happens to you. Like I've got friends obviously that are in Parliament now, and I was in school with them, and, we were in student politics together, and, you've seen that, but you see that, the spark goes out a little bit with time. And I think that's the thing that I think activists don't understand, is that people are on their side, but a lot of the time hands are tied. You can't do stuff. There's certain things you just can't do. And whether it's fixing rent prices and, Coles and Woolworths, whether it's the Constitution limiting you, or stakeholders, or unions, or other things, or you're trying to balance laws with other laws, or trying to make. And the other thing is that when you pass law, you have to have a human rights compatibility statement. You have to have all of these things. You have to get it voted for, but you also have to make sure that you're not creating any sort of absurdities with other laws. And the way that Australia works is that we've got, there's no one law for everything. It's like lots of interacting policies and levels and fucking lots of this stuff. So when you're actually writing a statute, I know this is boring, but it's really important to know that it is linked to this, which is that the background work is what gets shit done. And, the screeching on Twitter, not so much. Again, it plays a role, okay, in terms of the media, playing the media. But again, the media, you can see that they still ignore whatever the fuck is inconvenient, okay? But it can play a role in, creating like that upward pressure from people. I would actually urge, if you're in Australia and you are voting, and especially and the US, of course, but anywhere, okay, I would actually say, if you're feeling like this was a vote-changing issue for you, I think it's very important that you write to congratulate and reward politicians as much as you do write to complain. Because again, they're all about the numbers. They're all about the election. They're all about what the public sentiment is at any given time. And I think that if you felt strongly about an issue and there was a victory, I think it is worth writing as a constituent and saying, thank you for doing this. This is now, I was thinking of not voting for you and now I am going to. That's the magic words. And they will take that on board. Okay. Their electorate office takes that shit on board. And that's how you get a numbers person. And most of them are numbers people. If you're an electoral, if you work in politics, you're usually like good at the numbers stuff, right? And what you would do is you say that then gets counted and tabled in their communications as something where you go, wow, my constituents actually agree with this and I will do more lefty shit. Seems like this lefty shit's popular. And maybe they'd be more incentivized to speak up on Palestine or more incentivized to talk up about, welfare stuff. And most of the politicians in the Labor Party are not this big straw man that you think they are. They are not for some. Even most MPs in all parties. Most of them are fairly reasonable. They're Aussies, okay? They're not. They're human beings, okay? And I think that if you say, and even if they're the world's biggest narcissist, writing to them and saying, this was actually a vote-changing issue for me, well done, thank you for your support. If you continue down this road, you'll have a loyal voter. And if you don't, then I won't. And you say that, and you make a point of saying that, okay? Assuming they had a role in it. If they fought it, then you do that. But that's how you incentivize. You can encourage people with one compliment a lot more than you can with 100 complaints. And that's why I would hope that those who have been active on the Assange stuff take the time to actually acknowledge that the ALP have done a stellar fucking job here. Okay? Now, again, we won't know how much of a role they played until, they tell us or whatever, right? We'll that's still unknown. But I imagine that this was a massive effort. And also for those particular politicians, particularly like Penny Wong, and Penny Wong in particular, where if the trade-off is what I think it is, that is someone who's probably paid a very personal, ethical, moral price for his release. And I think that, again, on the off chance that that depending on what the bargain was, which we will never know, but give praise to politicians as well. Give praise to them for doing the right thing, because all they hear is fucking complaints. Okay? And again, go right now. If you believe in this and you agree, write to your MP, and they were a Labor MP or they were part of it, okay? Write to them an email. Write an email and go, I'm so happy that this has finally happened. Thank you. More of this, please. This is some of the, I'm disillusioned. Yeah. Or sign up for the parties. Again, you can sign up for I wouldn't sign up for the coalition because, they've been trying to recruit me for years and I'm like, no, fuck off. But, you sign up for the Greens as well. As much as I give shit to the Greens, they have a role to play. But, praise your politicians as well, okay? Because all they hear is shit. And I don't like that. Like there's content, it's easy to make money. It's easy to make an audience and money and clicks and all that stuff, hating things and hating on politicians and stuff, right? But I've worked with so many of them. Like you watch Stephen Smith on That Play with Julian Assange, and I go, I know that guy. It's like he's a human being. He had a wife and kids. He was the member for Perth, and he sort of progressed through there. And he's still a human being, living and breathing, who I've had conversations with. Okay, seems like a pretty decent person. Okay, give him some praise. Say, I like what you're doing. Keep it up. Because a lot of these politicians, they started in student politics. I'm serious. They're like me. They're just normal people like me, and they took a different path. Most of them. Some of them like rich boy cunts, like most, But most of the Labor politicians were all lefties, okay, who realise shit's a bit more complicated and numbers driven than they would have liked, and hearing from someone that they think is a real lefty or an activist say, good job, is probably like going to make their fucking day. Okay, because all they hear is about, have you seen Penny Wong's mentions? Like, what the fuck? That's why I do try to be productive. But again, I'm not saying to, like, you know, stand your leaders, because there's always going to be some fuckwit that's like, oh, bootlicker. Fuck. It's like, no. I know, especially Labor and Greens politicians. I know a bunch of them, okay? And from years ago, we kind of lost touch. But, you know, for the most part, they're fucking people. They're normal people. And, like, sitting there and slagging them off, okay, like they're just again, like this big straw man. It's not the United States. We are not, and this is another thing, we are not America, okay? Yes, there's a disproportionate number of law grads and union people and that sort of stuff, professional, white collar, right? There's a lot of people who are, you know, we're disproportionate. Someone said this, there's too many lawyers who are politicians. And I was like, and I was a smart ass, and I said, what, you mean the people who write and pass laws? And they, for some reason, I didn't get a response. I was like, but yeah, it's like, well, people who are interested in the law want to do politics because they're white writing laws. They're passing bills. That's the job. Oh my God. Fucking all these fucking idiots. It's like in the United States, it's very like celebrity driven. And it's like, I was fucking love this valuetainment dipshit. And he's like, oh, who do you think should run for president? And who was it that they're like, oh no, it should be Jon Stewart. It's like, no, it shouldn't be Jon Stewart. It should be The Rock. No, it shouldn't be Oprah. It shouldn't be anyone. It should be someone who understands things. It's not fake. It's not a pop. It's like, oh my God. It drives me fucking nuts. I think maybe lawyers are good, and maybe people who understand the implications of what they're and the complexities of what they're fucking doing and the impact of their actions might have on people. Just saying. Anyway, Matthew said, as a UK-US citizen, I get to vote twice this year. Yeah, it'll be Labor UK and Democrat US. My UK Labor candidate was very responsive when I told her I hadn't received my Yeah, but, you know, again, there's so much shit. Like, I get so frustrated that people are falling for, sorry about the lights, if it's overexposed and stuff, it's like, it's a bad day. Also, I look like shit. I'm tired. But it's, hug a Polly today is what I'm saying. Reward them when they do well. And again, this is just basic fucking Psych 101 shit. Is that people remember compliments and they are more motivated by positive rewards than they are by a heap of negativity. Especially when you're used to negativity. Like I remember even just running an agency, right? Because we live in a world of shit going wrong and bug fixes and all that sort of stuff. Even though you're building, you live in a world of spot fires and bug fixes and problems and grievances and fucking all of this stuff, right? That's the job. So when a client goes out of their way to say, thank you, we love you, I'm so happy with it, it makes a difference because they don't. They just assume that. They just assume that you get praise. And it's like, you don't. Like a lot of it, and politicians are no different. So go and just write a 2-sentence email. I was going to change my vote. I thought that you were never going to deal with this. You did. Keep doing more of these types of things. We've got you. Please. And I'll keep voting for you. Done. Okay? It's, again, it's amazing. We have a democratic system. As democratic as something that, I think we're up to what? I think we've gone to 27 million. We're up to 24 million now. Like in the space of a couple of years, we've grown massively. You try I can't even control 4 people in my house with eating the same dinner most nights, let alone like 24 million of the fuckers all screeching about their one thing that's most important to them. It's like, you try doing that. Okay, it's not easy. It's not easy. It's not an easy job. And I watch this plague. Again, it's not a plague. That's a bit emotive. But I'm saying this brain worms thing on the left. Sorry. Good night, Judith. Thank you. This thing on the left where you become vulnerable to fascistic far right rhetoric when you don't have hope, because they prey on your anger and nihilism and the negativity, and that's where I'm I'm always going to be left wing because I believe in change, and I believe that you can change things, and I believe that, if you slip into nihilism, you're extremely, especially at the moment with all of the bullshit that's going on. The goal of all of this stuff is to get you to switch off, to not participate, to disengage, to give up. And, I feel that a lot, but eventually, I cling on to things and you go, you know what, things can change, things can get better. I didn't expect to wake up yesterday morning to see that Assange was free. Like, what the fuck? That within a day that happened. I mean, and obviously it took longer than that, but I'm saying that it changed quickly. It went from being hopeless to, possible. And I think it's important to stick to that, right? Good night. Yeah, sorry, I was in the middle of a sentence. Sorry. Thank you, Judith. Good night and sleep well. And I'm sorry if I bit. I was just trying to explain that we live in the shadows of a coup, and people forget, or a coup that didn't happen. My lawyers have advised me to say, because the CIA said that there was no evidence that the CIA were involved in a coup. But Paul Barry, brilliant journalist, said there was. So, it's his word against the CIA, who we know always tell the truth. There's a whole saga around that. There's a whole saga around that, and that comes down to anti-communism. I think, if I remember correctly, I should probably, I was looking into that once. There was a reason for the name change. And I think that it involved, this is how entrenched in America, like how subtly America influenced we are, which is that, just those little things. They are just little things that tell you where our allegiances are. I think that I'm not going to speak about it because my memory is faulty. I'd have to go back, but I have a feeling that it involves the anti-communist rhetoric, because there was a big problem of the whole, that all that shit, the Red Scare stuff in the United States. That was here as well. Like, the anti-communism shit is big here. That's part of the reason, again, that links to our dependence on the United States in terms of our fear of China. Okay, they're like China coming to take us over, the communists are coming. That Red Scare shit is here as well. And I have a feeling that there was something about the trade unions being communists, and so they just changed it to an American spelling or something. I vaguely, and I can't remember. I just remember that there was like anything in Australian politics and most other politics is always ridiculous. I'd love to write a book about these fucking things. They're always fucking silly. There's some silliness involved. And that's why it's so annoying to me watching all these other creators where they're just, they could make a living telling these quirky, amazing, interesting stories that people don't find. I find them interesting. I'd like to do more of that. But bring it like the funny little stories that like how we got here. But instead they're just rah-ing, making people angry and mentally ill. And it's very frustrating because it's the truth, especially with all this conspiracy theory stuff. The truth of international relations and these things is way more interesting than anything that you can make up with a conspiracy theory. It's not. It's way more interesting. It just, like I said, it takes longer to explain it. Like, I was going back to Whitlam to try and like talk about that. I had to explain that, and you lose people. And they go, what's this got to do with Assange? I go, well, again, nothing against you, Judith. I'm saying you're external, so you don't understand. But that's an interesting fucking story. That a big part of the reason why we had no leverage, or maybe even got leverage, is because we are over a barrel with the United States. And I had to explain why we don't stand up to the United States. And, like, despite everyone saying that, we're one of their closest allies, that partnership is not 50-50. Okay. And that sentiment domestically has been spreading, which is that they're not meeting their end of the deal. We're absorbing all, much like, the corporations who are like, the public absorb all of the risk and they get all of the profit. It's the same thing with Australia and the United States. It's that idea that we're absorbing all of the risk. We've got the nuclear subs fucking 20 minutes away. We've got we've got bases, military bases. We've got Pine Gap. We've got all of these stuff. We're vulnerable, and we're making our politicians are having to sell everything down the river over this Israel business, okay? We're absorbing all of the risk, making all of the compromises, and the United States won't even release one of our citizen journalists, And it's like, well, that's what I was trying to explain, and there's context. It's always context. And always assume that my stories, even though I've gone on a tangent, they do come back eventually. You just got to hang in there. It's actually funny. Apparently there's this thing where longer content, assuming you're posting shorter content as well, which I don't do, but I've got to start doing. Longer content is actually doing well because if you can get into people's sleep or on autoplay, then YouTube likes that. So maybe one day my super long rants will actually just be very soothing until I scream or swear or drop my dick. And then obviously... Anyway, how long have I been going for? An hour and a half. That's more than enough. I was going to do Adobe, but I was planning to do Adobe today, but then the news broke, and I think that just should be its next stream. But it is, again, the thing about activism is there's a common thread with everything I talk about, which is get your head on straight for a start. But also, things are always more complicated than you'd think. There are always people who are going to jump onto a cause for the wrong reasons and for the wrong motivations, and they will be out of their lane and they will say things in absolutes, okay? Like this Assange stuff, there'll be lots of takes coming, right? And I'm trying to be very clear that I'm speculating. I didn't do fuck all. I'm not glomming onto this and taking credit. The credit lies solely with his campaign and people. Again, like I said, how much that impacts the actual power in the end, that I doubt it, okay? But it can't hurt to keep it in the public, sphere, okay? It was not going well when it was quiet. But yeah, so it's there's an awful lot of people who rot in jail and unfairly, and who are in similar situations who do not get any attention. So maybe we can start focusing on some of those people now. Maybe that's the next thing to do, is to put your energy. I hope that he will probably. I imagine that it's not. It'd be interesting to see if the terms of his release is that he can't write or talk about it or participate in public life. Again, you don't know, because you do also, because he's technically charged with a felony, they can charge him with sort of proceeds of crime stuff and all of those sorts of things. So I don't know. I really, the details of the deal, I'd be curious to know. I'm not sure that we'll ever know fully what the agreement was, but it'd be good if they did. For the sake of transparency, it would be very good if, transparency, it'd be very good if, we knew the details, because I think that what it would do, well, again, for non-idiots, if you knew the details of what was expected of him, you'd probably ease up and go, well, he can't talk about it. He can't do interviews. He can't. I think it's better than won't. The problem with this stuff is that when your hands are tied, people think you don't want to do stuff, or that you've chosen something else. When a lot of the time, it's like when I'm talking about with tech, or when people ask me questions and I go, well, I can't talk about that because I've signed an NDA years ago that I honour, right? It's the same thing. Like, most people have gag orders, and especially once I'm a lawyer, it'd be magnified, okay? Riddled with disclaimers and, various other things that it's my opinion, okay? If I can speak at all on anything. You really tightly, a lot of the people who, this happened during the pandemic, which is that the people who are qualified to speak are usually gagged from speaking. And what that does is it creates a vacuum where the unqualified people who are not subject to a board are speaking as though they are experts, and they get elevated as experts because people are hungry for information. That's one of those things that that I think NDAs in particular and gag orders and those sorts of things do, which is that if you don't speak, someone will fill that space. And that was one of the things I think they got wrong. The medical board in particular got wrong during the pandemic, which was that, again, friends with a few doctors who said, I just have to sit and watch this shit and I can't say anything because if I do, I'll be in trouble with the medical board and I can't go correcting that shit because I've been told what to say. And I know people who said that. We just have to say party line. And then you create this vacuum where quacks can take, it's and it's the same thing in any profession. Most people who are qualified to speak about anything interesting have an NDA and can't. So I think, again, just be more charitable across the board, okay? Just just assume that people are doing, again, to assume the best of people and to steel man people, okay? As much as I argue with a straw man for fun, being charitable and steel manning people as much as you possibly can. Like, I'm at the mercy of my emotions as well. Obviously, I go, fucking what? Okay, and assume. And also when because I know Matthew and I know Judith and I know people. Once you get to know people, you know where they're coming from. So you go, oh, okay. Now, but, when it's a stranger, you have to straw man because you don't know who you're dealing with. And it could be a fucking person who's abusive, right? It's different when you're in this type of setup. But in terms of, and the same thing with Twitter, right? People are going to argue with you, but they could be doing it in good faith, often aren't. And sometimes, you don't always get it right. And I definitely don't always get it right. And I definitely dehumanize more than I would like. And, I assume the worst, but part of it goes with being a woman online, which is that it is a numbers thing, which is that 95% of interactions with men that I don't know online who just solicit fucking, unsolicited shit escalates the second that you push back a little bit, and it's not worth it. Okay. So that's something that it's something that men have to accept, that women are going to have their guard up if they don't know you and you start fucking talking to them don't respect those boundaries. That's just a fact. Whining about that is not the right way, but maybe go, I understand because men are shit. Okay. I understand. It's not me. It's not personal. That's just part of the course. But I do try as best I can, once I sit back and I'm out of my emotions, right? Everyone has, I'm not a robot. I'm not perfect. I'm a hypocrite and I change my mind, all this shit. And I'm grumpy. I wish that the one thing that I wish that I could fix, and I've never been able to, is my visceral rage at mansplaining when I feel condescended to. But it just happens so much and so often and is just such a noisy part of everyday life for me, and I just get fucking. So if you're the 10th guy that's done it that day, you're going to get it. You're going to get my wrath. That's just how it is. Just, again, be charitable. Understand where I'm coming from, which is that I'm putting myself online, live streaming to, and anything can happen. Anything can happen. And so I'm nicer to the people that I know. And as long as they're not sort of, hammering the chat and disrupting me and being annoying and trying to, banter with me, I'm pretty cool. But if you're a stranger, I'm going to be a little more guarded around you, right? That's a normal thing. And what other streamers will get it, and other people who do this will know because they know what it's like to have to try and do all of these things. But do try to just be a little more understanding of people and even politicians, they're people. And again, I've met lots of different people. I've met business leaders. I've met politicians. I'm friends with politicians. I'm friends with business leaders. I'm friends with famous people. I'm friends with poor people on the street. I fucking, I talk to everybody. I will talk. This in a bubble that I sit. People, you scratch the surface and people are doing the best they can with what they've got most of the time. Okay? Not all. Some are rewarded and, for doing the bare minimum and are like whatever, and then like nepo babies with no clue and they're fucking, but like I said, I think psychopaths are still rare. Okay. And I think that, most of that is learned behavior through capitalism. And don't just quote me on that one. All right. There's research that says that, under different economic conditions that certain disorders go away and can't be replicated. That's, Russian, what? I know his name, but I keep my brain's not working. You know who, the Russian Marxist psychologist who did the social learning theory. It's fucking left my brain. Starts with V. My son's username is Volskaya, and it keeps saying Volskaya, but it's just not working. See, this is what happens on live streams. You brain fart. You go, fuck it. I don't know this one thing that I know very well, and I've said 10 times, and it will come to me the second I come off stream. That's what happens. Okay. Be nicer to people. Be more forgiving. My brain works. My brain doesn't work sometimes. I'm doing it. Okay. And it's the same thing with, I'm frustrated with activists online, mostly because a lot of it is also astroturf to fuck. Don't worry your pretty little head a bit. Okay. Well, Matthew's spoken. I can stop worrying now because he told me to. No, anyway, that's me. I'm going to go. I planned to talk about Adobe today, and I was going to try and squeeze it in, but I don't think I will. I think that this can be a nice little standalone thing. But, I will talk more about AI and Adobe next time. There's just so much I need to do, but I'm thinking I'll probably be back Friday. I've got an assessment hump to get through, and then I'll be, so it's all good. At the end of the week, I should be good again. And then I got to prepare for the fucking invigilated exams of doom, where you have to decide whether you give them. I'm just going to use another computer for it. Anyway, I'm just going to have a separate computer for installing that fucking spyware. I'm not putting that shit on my computer. Client files and shit on there. I'm not doing that. Get fucked. So anyway, I love you. Thanks for watching. Thank you for your precious life seconds. I got to piss. Here's the dick bottle. Here's my drink bottle. It's my Stanley cup. I'm cool like all the TikTok kids. See? Hang on. Focus. That took me a long time to draw that. All right. I got to piss. Stay well, and I'll see you Friday. And I'll probably talk about Adobe. I've been meaning to do that for 2 streams now, but we'll get there. Thanks for watching. Become a patron if you like. Never expected. Always very much appreciated. Patreon's the best because that will link to my website. But if you can't afford it, don't. Okay? If you can't afford it, don't. I don't expect it. My stuff's always free. As much, they're probably, you got to provide value for people who give you money, and I'll have some members only shit, but nothing that I actually produce, like written word or anything like that, will be paywalled. It will mostly be access like streams or whatever, like bonus content. But so anyway, pay what you can. Don't pay. Tell me to fuck off. Pay me to shut up. I've got a $1.5 million Patreon tier where you can pay me to not do this. That'd be cool. CIA. I should start spilling CIA secrets, and then they can pay me to not do it. I don't think that would work. I think they would just kill me. I think they're fine without giving me any money. But yeah, anyway, have fun. I love you. See you Friday. Oh, Stephen's here. Hello, Stephen. You got it. You have to watch the replay. Oh, yeah, I tweeted just now. I said, petition for a crowdfunder for Wikipedia to buy Twitter from Captain Fuckstick. So there you go. I was thinking of you when I said Captain Fuckstick because you like that. All right. Take care. Bye. I gotta go. I gotta pee. I don't like studying. Studying sucks. I hate it. This is awkward. This is awkward.